student here, if you're a parent. So staff members, make sure that we're keying in here. Great. To make sure that we fully understand what the proposal is, what options are for our existing students, and what options there are for providing feedback. So as some of you know, I presented a proposal to the Board of Education to repurpose School 44 and have it become an early childhood center for this zone. For those of you that have been in the community for a while, before I even started interviewing for superintendent, I heard of conversations that this community has had around the potential closing of School 44. So a lot of the same concerns remain with regards to student enrollment, how we're doing with academic achievement, and then need for seats within the zone. So all those factors kind of remain as part of the decision-making process for why School 44 as the school selected in this zone to be repurposed as a pre-K center. So wanted to provide some context as to what we hope to accomplish there. Unfortunately, we've seen a decline in enrollment in the RCSD to the tune of over 6,000 students over the past 10 years. Most of those students are going right to charter school. If I were to allow us to just continue down that road without doing anything different, we would be a district, an urban district of 19,000 students in the next 10 years. At that point, we would literally be talking about closing a fourth of our buildings in all of RCSD at that time. So we have to think creatively of how are we going to reverse that declining enrollment. So this proposal keeps our building in the community. It fills it with 3- and 4-year-olds that will continue on in the RCSD and continue with us all the way through graduation. So what I didn't want to happen was a closure of a building without a plan of what we're going to do otherwise. I also did not want to turn it over to any charter organizations. I'm not anti-charter, but I am pro-RCSD, and I have to look out for the best interest of our school district. So that's kind of the background of how we got to the decision that is on the table today for the Board of Education to vote on February 27th. So for our families, this is a change that we want to make sure that we're walking you through the process of what can happen next, but with regards to options for school choice and the like. So typically by the end of March, our families have at that time a process to engage in a lottery process for school selection, but we're going to give our current families special priority. So we have members from our placement team here today to walk through that process at your individual tables. So we're going to set up future meetings for all parents here at School 44 to come right on site to engage in the placement process to make sure we understand fully what those options are. Those meetings for families will be right here at School 44 on March 16th and March 24th. But to make the most use of our time, tonight I wanted to hear directly from you. So we're set up conveniently in table groups. So what we would like to do is to engage in some conversation as a table because we want to share questions and concerns that you might have on your mind as a faculty member, community member, or staff member or family. Some of our students are here today as well. So have that conversation. We're going to have a conversation at our table. If there's a question that everyone has at the table that you feel would be good for the whole group to hear, we're going to be collecting those note cards to make sure that I'm answering them when we come back together. So we'll have an opportunity to bring those top of mind questions that everyone really wants to know the answer to when we come back together. So I'll read those questions aloud and make sure that I answer them so that we're all clear on any questions that you might have or concerns at that time. All right, so I want to pause there. Any questions about what we're going to do next? Before we move on, there's going to be folks from my team walking around at tables, so we don't want to wait longer. If we can answer questions right while you have them, we're going to be floating around the room, so my staff is located all around the room. We have some Board of Education commissioners in the room, so I'd like to thank Commissioner Adams for being here tonight. He's right over here, and Commissioner Malloy from our Board of Education is here as well. So we're all going to be walking around and make sure that we answer any burning questions that you might have right at your table. But we're also going to spend time coming back as a group to hear what are the top of mind questions that everyone kind of has, and I'll address those directly for the group. Make sense? All right, so we're going to spend just a few minutes. We're going to see how everything is going, and then I'll bring everyone back together to answer questions in the next 15, 20 minutes or so. Sound good? All right, thank you.
So 500 or so between 44 and 57. And long term, we'd like to have all these pre-Ks be in the neighborhood or community schools where the kids are going to be going.
That's always
good. I'm hoping there's a transition plan where eventually all the pre-Ks here would be funneled into individual schools as they gain the facilities to staff those.
You think like almost like a feeder pattern school? Mm-hmm. Like hypothetically, the pre-K from here, just hypothetically would be feeder school to 16, to 19.
Well, I know that because we were instrumental in getting 16 renovated and rebuilt, but when they planned it, they figured for 4-year-old pre-K, so it was really pre-K. So this would be one way of handling that, but eventually we'd like to have these portables or construction on 16 that would add 3 pre-Ks, which would 3 strands, so there's like that's kind of long-term. And long-term, is this more kind of into a neighborhood school?
I can't answer that, but I think that's a good question to put down here. But I can't answer that. So just like we have what we call the school choice that comes out in March. This particular families at 44 will get an extension of that period, and then we'll actually have, April 3rd will be the deadline, and you will do your school of choice just like you would, ordinary, I think it's the top 3 schools, and the placement will work with you to try to make, as much as possible, try to get those selections. And that's what you see right here. You just set it. So again, they're going to be here March 16th and also March 24th. All the placement representatives will be here, to help you with all that process. And Ms. Simmons will also, you see her email and contact information, will also be available to assist or answer any questions on that. They'll get it no matter where they go. Whatever special services that they have, that will continue no matter where they go.
So that's part of their IEP plan, and that goes wherever you are in the district, that follows you, because they have to address those IEP plans.
Now, are they going to try to place kids in schools that are near where they live, so that?
So what we do is, as you know, we have them zoned, so we will do the best we can to honor the choices of the family within that zone. So they will do their top 3, first, second, and third choice. And that's why I said we have a special team dedicated just to the families of 44. And we'll do all that we can to get them their school choice.
And to your question, that part of the superintendent's reason of the other team is that each one of these pre-K centers will be in a zone. And as you know, we have 3 zones in the district. So 44 will be the zone for the Southwest, the South. 57 will be Northeast. Northwest is 57, and then Northeast is the one over at Clinton already exists.
Now you're saying 500 more students or total?
And that's 3 and 4 years.
That's what we're estimating.
What right now, in terms of 4-year-old pre-K and 3-year-old pre-K, what percent? Hey,
Assad?
that's right. You can't. You got to be careful what you say.
That's right. You're always on camera when John's around. Hey, Dr. Turner, how are
Hi,
you?
we're right in the middle of it.
I just wanted to know.
Yeah.
He's a great interrupter.
I'm all about off ramps.
Well, we interrupt him a lot of times.
See you.
No, that's not what his question. He said, what's the long-term plan for this facility, right? Not so much.
Right now, in 4-year-old pre-K, what percentage of possible students do we have in 4-year-old pre-K? If we look at how many students are there in kindergarten and how many 4-year-old pre-K students are there, it should be roughly the same if we had 100% participation. Where do we stand?
As you know, some of our 4-year-olds are not just in our RCSD setting, but they're also in our CBOs, community-based organizations. So I just want to make sure I'm hearing your question right. You want to know the number of 4-year-old
preschoolers that are active in the Rochester area that are part of this wonderful pre-K program that we are noted for having.
I don't have that data with me, but I can certainly, we can get that answer too.
Okay.
Can you write that down here? So how many 4-year-olds
And the same thing for the 3-year-olds.
Yeah, but not the CBOs, just RCSD.
RCSD and now the CBOs, are they, what's the affiliation?
So what happens is 3 and 4-year-olds some of them are placed in direct RCSD preschools. Some of them are placed in CBO. So Head Start, ABC would be a CBO.
Types of CBOs, Lewis Street Center, YMCI,
yeah. So they would be
Karen and Sharon.
Yep. They would also have 3 or 4-year-old RCSD resident students. Oftentimes, because we didn't historically have space for them, so we would contract with CBOs to provide that service.
One thing that occurred to me that would be a possible growth option is, are we making space in these buildings for students whose parents are thinking of moving into the city but are currently in the burbs? Because I don't think the pre-K programs in the suburbs are as advanced.
Yeah, and they're all they're half days. Not a full day preschool. And I don't think they have 3 and 4-year-olds.
They're 4-year-olds because we won that state grant to get 3-year-olds to really pre-K.
Because that would seem like a good way of attracting parents to the school district.
Change what we do, the practice that we do now. Okay.
All right, I'm going to slide in.
Let me get that time.
We're going to spend a few more minutes, about 2 or 3 more minutes. Remember, if you have any questions that really resonated around the table, that you want to write down on the card, make sure that I get my answer.
So I got the placement person here. So in citywide schools, you usually get one choice, correct? And then you pick the other schools in your zones. What, 3?
4 choices.
4 choices. So you get to pick, like, he has a student in the 3rd grade. So he's going to have to find at a school. So you typically get to pick one citywide choice and then 4 schools in your zone. And example, the citywide schools like School 15, like School 58.
All right, thank you for the great conversations at your table. Lots of great conversations, lots of questions already answered, but we also took some time to have some questions written on note cards for the benefit of everyone in the room. So some of the questions that I heard as I was walking around were with regards to timeline. So I want to spend just a little bit of time to talk about why the February 27th date is so important. So unfortunately, I started on July 1, and at the end of September, we were told that we were $30 million at least in the hole. So we've spent the past 3 months really focused on how do we address a mid-year deficit that added up to actually $65 million. Once we started getting some traction there, we started to turn our attention to 2021, which was really looking at some longer-term solutions for fiscal stability in the RCSD. February 27th is important because reporting to the state with regards to school repurposing, closures, and the like have to be done by March 1st. So that process is a state mandate. So thus the reason for that February 27th date. So just wanted to make sure that everyone understood kind of the rationale behind that. Again, and we're looking towards the 2021 school year, where unfortunately we're going to have even larger hill to climb to balance our 2021 budget. But I just wanted to give some background with regards to timeline. A few questions were raised with regards to the pre-K sites. So the intention is to have a pre-K center in each of our 3 zones to allow access for our parents all across the city. A misconception that's out there right now is that community-based organizations that a lot of you all have had great experiences with are disappearing, and they're not. We're really looking for continued and shared responsibility of making sure we're providing our students with a high-quality pre-K experience. Right now, 61% of our students are educated at the pre-K experience in community-based organizations, while only 39% are serviced in the RCSD. The quality that we have in the RCSD and CBOs is beyond question. They are high-quality, stellar programs that are celebrated across the nation. So there's still going to be that access for all parents across the city for community-based organizations and pre-K experience through our 3 centers. So there's no plan to eliminate. The proposal that's shifting would move us to about a 55%, 45% shared relationship. Will the 3 and 4-year-old sites be full day? Yes, they will. And we're going to be building in wraparound care for enrichment care after school at all 3 sites. Looking at art, music, PE, social-emotional supports, all will be offered until 6 o'clock p.m. is the plan that we're investigating right now to make sure that we're offering at the 3 sites. And that's all based on feedback that we were hearing from parents that we did not want to lose that wraparound care. In addition, we'll continue to offer bus passes like we do at our existing pre-K centers. Most of our CBOs offer bus passes as well, while some also offer van and bus service that belongs to those CBOs, but the vast majority are bus pass driven. There were a few questions, so this is going to be something that some in the room are aware of because you lived the time when School 44 was brought up for closure before. A resolution was put forward to the board at that time, but it didn't go through. So I can't speak to why that occurred and what happened this side or the other. All I can say is it's a different resolution. This resolution is for the repurposing of School 44 and 57. That's the resolution that the board will be voting on February 27th, so I can't really speak to why something was taken off the table or didn't occur when it was put forward to the board last year, I believe. Transportation was a big concern right from this table, I know for sure, and some other tables. So we're still going to follow the policies that we have in the RCSD that are unfortunately state-driven. We're working hard to address the 1.5 mile radius. All of our urban districts want that radius to be shrunk. I would love for it to be 0.5 mile. If I could wave a magic wand and make that happen, that's what we would offer. Bus service beyond a 0.5 mile radius. We're not there yet. So what our team is really good about, Mr. Schmidt is here, has worked closely with families to say, if you have concerns about getting your child to school and what that looks like, he and his team do an exceptional job of figuring out how we can make that happen. Once your child is placed in the school of your choice, what does that look like to make that happen? It doesn't happen in all cases. I can tell you it happens here a lot more than it does in many other districts. So we would work closely with you and your family to make sure that the transportation is provided, if at all possible, and then continue to work with you on what that could look like. The next one wasn't a question, but it was a drawing of me, which I really enjoy. We'll be keeping that. Thank you all. There was a question around dates already being set for times to come back to 44 to engage in the process of meeting with our placement team, making sure that you're involved in the lottery process. And the question alluded to, is this a done deal? So what I researched when I came into the RCSD is we're doing just the opposite of that. We're preparing the community well in advance of a what if. If the board decides yes, we want to have things in place so it is not a rushed process trying to piece things together after a vote. So the vote still occurs. If it's a no, then these meetings won't occur. But the way I operate is look at the long term. What do our parents and our staff need to make sure that we're setting them up for success? So I did build those dates in, knowing that if it is a yes, our parents are going to need that opportunity to engage in the lottery process. What is special about those dates that are coming up is everyone knows that the lottery occurs in the transition years of kindergarten, 7th grade, and 9th grade. A lot of our students aren't in those transition years, so you're really going to get your top choices when you engage in the lottery. The only students outside of K and 7 and 9 that are participating in the lottery process are going to be students at 44 and 57 if the vote goes forward. So when you list your ranking of top choices, you're really the only students that will be engaged in that process, so you have a very high likelihood that you'll be placed at the school of your choice. All other students in the RCSD are not permitted to participate in that lottery unless they're at that K, 7, and 9 year transition period. Okay? All right. There are questions with regards to IEPs. And we have Ms. Keisha Morgan who's here today, so I really don't want to go into specifics. But Ms. Morgan and her team are ready to go to discuss what that transition looks like. We want to make sure that we're not causing disruption to the education process as much as possible. So talking about what that transition could look like and building the bridges between classroom teachers, making sure that the IEP services are transferred over to services to your new school. But Ms. Morgan and her team are ready to go. So I'm going to have her raise her hand one more time for the few parents who had IEP questions.
If you have a question I didn't talk to, I know I talked to you about that. Okay, I do have a program.
All right, a few more detailed questions. What time would school start at 44 and what time would it end? We're still working out what that timing is going to look like for the pre-K centers. We have an existing center in one of our zones, and a lot of the parents have given us feedback around what they believe the start time should be. So we're taking that feedback and looking at what parents are asking us to be able to provide. And then also looking at what aftercare might look like with regards to enrichment services. So we haven't landed on a tight start time should this plan go through. Would the teachers coming to pre-K, would they be certified? Yes. So that's something that we're really excited about, is making sure that our pre-K teachers will be highly qualified, certified teachers, providing a high, top quality education experience for your children. And then how many classrooms would there be? I definitely don't know the exact number of classrooms, but great question here, first floor versus basement and second floor. We're really looking at each individual classroom and the setup of the building. Again, I defer to Mr. Smith. If you've seen renovation projects across the city, they do a phenomenal job taking into consideration all of the things that need to happen to make sure our students have access, easy access to classrooms, to bathroom facilities, and the like. So Mr. Smith and his team would work through making sure that we choose the appropriate floor for the classrooms to be on, and making sure that we retrofit to meet the needs of our youngest babies. All right. So those are all the written questions. Are there any general questions for the good of the group? Yes?
I actually have my question actually, and I have a letter from a parent that they asked me if I could read it. Can we do that?
Sure.
It says, "Good evening, Mr. Dade. I wish the basis of this community meeting under better circumstances, but unfortunately we must discuss a very disruptive proposal recently sent to us, the families of Lincoln Park, School number 44. I am a mother to a kind 4-year-old who began his pre-K year at 44. In fact, prior to starting this past fall, the RCSD recommended we register our son at 44 for many reasons. Not only is number 44 in our neighborhood, the dedicated teaching staff welcomed our family with open arms. So much so that our son is saddened on days school is not in session. Since enrolling our son here at number 44, our son has excelled in all areas. The progress he has made in speech alone is something our family is more than grateful for. As you already know, we removed his speech teacher at the end of 2019, and now you want to remove his school too. Imagine having to explain to a 4-year-old that we will be making yet another big change to his routine, and that change involves removing a school he loves so much. As a parent, this is upsetting. As a parent with a professional background in mental health, I can assure you that your attack on our school, not once, but possibly twice now, is leading to a great deal of emotional harm to our children. This proposal is not a solution to low enrollment. This proposal, among other issues the RCSD faces, will only continue to add to the burdens placed on our community. Parents and students alike are continuing to lose faith in a school system that is supposed to help our children. If there are empty classrooms at 44 school, fill them with more pre-K students. Do not, however, push our current students out and make the entire building a pre-K center. The message you send our children in doing so is that numbers matter more to you than receiving an education at an institution aimed at providing them with the best education they deserve. Lincoln Park works for our community. Let it keep working. So, she could not be here tonight, so that's why she asked me to read it. So, in going along with that, which I didn't know she was going to talk about it, I have a question. We want families to trust us and to have faith in us. And we want to build these relationships with our community. I'm not sure if anybody's, why it hasn't even come to the table. Maybe it already has and we just don't know about it. Why wouldn't we just take whatever classrooms in whatever school, not this school included, but I'm sure we're not the only one, and put pre-K children in those classes and then let them grow out through the 6th grade. Because as a parent, I personally would never put my child in a school where I know they're going to only be for 1 or 2 years. I know that I teach pre-K right now, so I know what my parents are thinking. And obviously their plan was not to have, especially the kids that just started in our pre-K 4s. The research shows that all these disruptions in a child's young educational career are very disruptive emotionally also, not just academically.
Yeah, so I'm running out of, I'm trying to remember some points. So a few points that I do want to make. One, we have an existing early childhood center that is bursting at the seams. So parents are choosing existing Rochester Early Childhood Center that is beyond their enrollment capacity, and those parents are saying that it's a high quality choice for them in the RCSD. With regards to just staying at a place for 1 or 2 years, that's what's taking place currently at CBOs. You're only going to be at the CBO for a 3-year-old and 4-year-old, and then you're going to make a transition. So these are things that we just have to think about as we move forward. A great point about why aren't we just putting classrooms in existing buildings? I would love to as the long term for the RCSD. I will tell you that it dates back to a few superintendents back in 2015 was the first time that I found that a superintendent recommended school closures. And that superintendent at the time said, we have to close 1 building per year because of our declining enrollment to make sure that we're being fiscally responsible. So if we started a while ago with about 35,000 students and we're at 25,000 now, and we have the same number of buildings, there's going to be some push and pull there. So that's why it's not the plan to necessarily fill classrooms right now. It was trying to think of if we're closing 2 buildings, I didn't want them just shuttered and turning over to charters, that this was a creative way to offer families something that they need while keeping options at the CBOs. So families still have the option of attending community-based organizations for their 3 and 4-year-old experience, but they'll also have seats available here in the RCSD at a pre-K center in each zone. So that's kind of the thought process behind some of those decisions. Yes?
So you actually didn't really answer the question of what would be the benefit of not, when parents take their kids to a CBO, they know this is only short term. They know that your kids are not going to be in daycare or preschool. But when a parent places a child in a preschool in a school, they expect that their child will continue through. So my question is, why wouldn't that be looked at as an option so that we're meeting the needs of our current families, but we're also bringing in pre-K students to further, increase our enrollment in this school or whatever school has opening?
Yeah, so I'll try to answer it a different way. I would love that to be the case in the long term. Over time, we have lost, just for the past 10 years, we've lost about 62 to 6,300 students, 6,300 students over the past 10 years. At the same time, we've maintained the same number of school and academic centers in the RCSD. You can't maintain as a district and be fiscally responsible by keeping all of your buildings open while you have dramatically declining enrollment. So this decision was not for the purpose of just opening pre-K centers. The decision was really around closing 2 school buildings to help start to move us in the right direction. Again, this is not a novel idea. This is something that was recommended superintendent after superintendent, and I'm making the decision to make sure that we're doing it this time around. So it's not about whether we want to fill school buildings. there had to be a closure of schools as we move forward with dramatically declining enrollment. What I didn't want to happen was to just shutter this building, turn it into another U prep so that they can suck students away from the RCSD into the charter world. That's where we're losing students. And again, parents are always going to be able to have that option. I just can't contribute to that occurring. So opening a charter right here in this community, I know what that would do to our ongoing enrollment trend. So that was the reason. Yes, ma'am.
But I think what she was trying to say was your consistency. For me, I can't speak for all of them, okay, but I went to one school. My whole history, I know the foundation was one school. I met her in first grade, but she ended up turning out to be my favorite teacher. I was straight to everything. Because she influenced the education was the key to my reality. Because I had my dad, I didn't have parents, I didn't have somebody pushing me education, and since then I tell. I'm 28 with 2 kids. I live not to Barney. I chose this school specifically because I looked at the principal, I looked at the mayor, and the grade. Does this school carry up to 6th grade? Okay, because I go to purchase a home. I will purchase a home in 94. Ding dong, but I want to send my kids 2 miles left or 2 miles south because I wasn't at that. I also work, but I had access to come in like this. They daycare right there at school. I can either jog, walk, or drive. Because that's the type of parent I am. Because it wasn't implemented for me. So the thing is, it's like, how are you closing the whole school down? And where's the consistency and instruction for the kids who already know their school? Like, oh, I'm going to be a scholar out of this school. But then they had that for like, well, I'm from this neighborhood and I brought back this, brought money back to this neighborhood because this wasn't happening for me. You can't have that if this school shut down, okay, now I gotta send my children to pregnancy. Well, I know for a fact I want to walk. And that's why I'm like, the district, people is leaving the district because they're so consistent. And that's just,
Okay, so if you've heard me speak on this issue, I'm a strong proponent for neighborhood schools. That's what I want to see happen in the RCSD. And for that very reason of seeing students walk through our doors at the age of 3 and go and matriculate all the way to 6th grade, transition into a middle school, into high school. That's what I truly desire for our school system. Unfortunately, I'm in a position where things haven't happened in the past that we really need to make sure start happening now. And that school infrastructure of how many buildings we have with dramatically less students, we had to make some of those decisions. So
I had children that attended school number 1 some years ago, and our school was displaced. And our advocacy was all over the place because we were a part of a district that wasn't very transparent. And so we did this right here on more than one occasion, knowing that the board had already made a decision to close our school. Modernize the school and have 15 schools come into the school and push number 1 students out. So I know what it feels like when you have a 4th or 3rd grader that's been in the school since they've been kindergartners or preschoolers and then being pushed out of their home. And yes, the lack of transparency was really the issue. But the one point I want to ask, come to the district, is when you talk about specialized placement, let's just say this, nobody else is going to be applying. So we're in the middle of the school year, and you're talking about specialized, yes, it's special, because it's only going to be you. Nobody's going to be knocking down doors to enroll because it's this school. But the point making is, how many of those schools on that list are in receivership? That is a question. And then we have school choice for 6th grade students. What does that look like for them? How many of those schools are in receivership? That's just a question. And then there's policies within placement, and I know that you can relax that policy for 30 days and allow the students to go to the schools in which they want to, the parents. But I don't know if that still exists anymore, but that was a policy back then. I don't remember the code, but I'll get back to you. But that would be a concern for me as a parent. Then I also wanted to take a moment on really clearly identifying neighborhood schools and community schools. What that looks like from a district standpoint and what it looks like for you and I, parents. Because when we talk about neighborhood schools and when we talk about community schools, we understand that enrollment and money is the issue. So let's not steer away from that. Enrollment, children in seats, money. And then when we talk about charter, no, we don't want charter schools to come in and eat up our buildings, but the question would be, is the district renting to the charters? That would be a question. So all I'm saying is, as these families are transitioning, and we understand what the current state of things in the district, is there a transition team for students and parents? And I'm not talking about specialized placement for 1 or 2 days, because nobody else is going to be signing up. Because kids are in school right now. This is not enrollment time. But what I would like to know, and I'm speaking for myself, because I was a parent, there was no transition plans for us. And after the fact, you still go through that pain. My oldest child is 25 now. My baby went to number 1 school. I had to feel that pain. All of my children went to number 1 school. It was so intense that I wanted to follow the principal. And I was able to, but not all parents were able to get into 53 school, where Dr. Harris Packman was, but I wanted to follow her. So with that being said, understanding and knowing that school closings may happen, it may just be a reality. As opposed to having teams set up as you are, which is good as far as placement, is there a transition team, really a transition team, to work with students and parents on what that feels like?
So we do have existing models currently where there's school environments that really do a great job of what that transition looks like. Not just from 6 go 7, 8 go 9, really thinking about as their students transition from their building into other schools, what that looks like. So we're going to be replicating that we have some time to plan that. So the reason behind the teams that are put in place in March is to be very responsive to what parents need at that time, which is getting the school of your choice so we can start having those conversations of what does the transition look like as you go from one school to another, what are the transportation needs and the like. So we do plan on replicating what is in existence as one of our shining models of that to make sure our parents and students are getting what they need.
Kids go to the schools and parents want them.
And that's
Saying we have to look at that. Not putting these children in receivership.
yeah. And that's the emphasis of our school choice model, is making sure that our parents have the options at their fingertips to make the right choice for their child by keeping receivership and other notables in mind as they make those decisions. Yes.
Hi, Nana. I have plenty of kids in schools. My grandbaby started in preschool here. Both of the last 2 grandbabies started here, and they're still continuing in school. So I have kids that go over to the Wilson School too. Now, when you guys snatched all these teachers up and hired them and stuffed all these little kids into the same classroom, my grandbaby, the 12-year-old, declining really fast. Too many kids in her class running around destructive, and the teacher can't control them because they're new kids coming in from, in the middle of the year. So now you're about to take these kids out of this school and they're about to go where next year? With some strange teachers that they don't know. And what you gonna do with their teachers that y'all finna kick out right now? So why you just can't utilize this school and put the preschool kids here like you've been doing, and just like the lady said, add to the classes, why shut the whole school down and separate all the kids? And then the neighborhood kids that walk to school, where are they going? Now they gotta really branch out, and everybody don't got a nana like me, and it's gonna transport them, pick up and do whatever, run around. No, they're gonna really have problems getting to school. Their parents are gonna have problems trying to wake up early, make it to work, get some kids on the bus, transport, spread them out and everything. It's supposed to be really, really hard for the kids that have to leave the school. I'm talking about the little kids, 1 through 5 grade, that's still here. Then you got the preschool kids that are here that already was planning on staying at this school and going to first grade and already looking at their first grade teachers and everything. What about the kids and the parents and the teachers that are already here? It's already enough kids crammed in all these other schools that y'all trying to pre-select. It's not really gonna work like that.
Well, extremely valid points, and I wish that I had a great answer for not allowing that to happen. But at the end of the day, the proposal is the need to repurpose schools in the RCSD. And again, I've explained kind of the declining enrollment. It's not something that I want to see happen. It's just what has to happen. With regards to the transition to different classrooms, we do have the restart every year of every student in the RCSD getting to know new teachers. But great point I do remember our parent up front of looking at who's my second grade teacher going to be, or I want Miss Fredrickson or someone. So I absolutely get that, and I feel that I hear you. It's just really unfortunate that we're walking into this situation that it is today, but you're spot on. I get it. Yes.
I hate to keep calling you spotlight. I just have another question. You stated that there were many reasons why you chose 44 school, and you said that one of them was due to academics. We're not on a receivership.
Not on receivership, but we've had declining reading scores over the past 2 years.
Okay, but there are schools that are in receivership who are not performing, that are, much worse off than this school. Why were those schools looked at?
So they were looked at. So like I was explaining, that was one of the criteria was the performance of the school academically. And unfortunately, we've seen declining achievement scores in reading here, but that wasn't the sole reason. This is one of the very few schools in all of RCSD that's below 300 students. The maintenance of the building, looking at when it was last renovated and the like. So there were quite a few criteria that were utilized. The criteria is not new. When interim Superintendent Lowengaard was here, 44 was on his list with regards to looking at the criteria of what schools should be closed or repurposed. So unfortunately, we've been living this as a 44 community for a while. I see some folks that have been part of those conversations to how do we keep 44 thriving in the community, but unfortunately we just haven't been able to get over that hurdle. So again, it's not the sole criteria, but it was one of the criteria utilized. Yes?
Hi, I just want to address the enrollment. School, I've been in this building, I've been here for 21 years, and I've seen some of my students, and I have the luxury of having their children now. Our students have been given a disadvantage because I've been in this building for 21 years. I can't count superintendents, and I can count probably at least 13 or more different principals. Yes. We finally get a consistent principal. She gets pulled out, he or she. And as far as enrollment, we were not allowed to take a 1 year because they were going to phase us out. Our enrollment is due to RCSD because you have stopped letting children enroll in our classes. You have stopped kindergarten. Right now, as of right now, we have no 5th grade class because 5 years ago you were phasing us out. So our enrollment is due to the lack of ability of our parents to enroll in the school because the school has been through a lot between different things. And I mean, our teachers and our communities need a cheer because we're the ones who kept this. We've been through so many different board members, so many different principals. We have been the consistency in this area, the teachers and the staff, because we have been the kids. I got to put my students on the bus Christmas break crying because they lost their reading teacher. I got to go to a preschool class that was crying because their teacher's taken away. This district needs to look hard at what we're doing to these children who already come to us with a lot of trauma.
And with the enrollment, you
I
also.
want to make sure I get this
I
hand.
know, but I'm just talking about enrollment because we don't have a fifth grade because you refused to allow us to have kindergarten.
When you say you, I wasn't here.
The district.
Okay.
You're the district.
Okay.
And 2 years ago, it was announced that they were closing our schools, and then when they decided against it, they did not let parents know that until the very end of May, beginning of June, where parents were worried about where are they going to send their children because they wanted to make sure that they were sending them to a good school. And we lost a lot of our students here to go to charter schools because they felt that that was more consistent because they keep hearing that they're closing. Then last year, you only decided to have one kindergarten when we were full before the end of June, and you refused, even though we had a waiting list, refused to open up another kindergarten. So our low enrollment is not because people don't want to be in this school, it's because the Rochester City School District, central office, does not want children at this school. So you're making decisions and assumptions on decisions you're making, not on decisions that the community and the parents are making, which is unfair to the kids and the families that are here in this school.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, my take is precisely what she said here. We've been fighting to keep this school open for 7 years now, and we've seen resistance coming from various parts of the central office, not placing kids here who want to come here, constant rumors that, gee, the school's going to be closed, so you may want to look somewhere else. I mean, it's a miracle the school is doing as well as it is, given the hard time they've been given by central office. And I kind of wonder if we look at, I know you're under the gun constantly to close schools. That's been happening in Rochester for years now. But whether you have this as a pre-K center or use all the empty classrooms for pre-K now and look at other empty classrooms in the district and use those for pre-K, you're renovating the same number of rooms, and you're not disrupting the school that is here. I mean, there's this fascination in Albany to close schools and then reopen them as some other name, and that just doesn't make sense to me. It's just destructive. We need to be making use of the facilities we have. I understand we need to grow the number of students, and I'm all for that, but it can be done in ways other than closing a school, disrupting the classes that are here, and then putting in a pre-K center here.
So again, I had to unfortunately look at the footprint of the district and thinking about how many buildings we actually had with our current K-5, serving our K-5, K-6 population. So we will be articulating what our budget deficit is for next year, and it's just astronomical. So these are decisions that we're just unfortunately making for the long term. We will receive, it's unfortunate that sometimes with that reconfiguration, it is a cost driver, but that's not the main reason for this plan. This plan is really looking at the long term to how we move forward. So I'm going to come back to this table. This table's got a lot of airtime. Any questions from anyone else in the room? Yes, ma'am.
Because of the cuts in the center, that was great. Now, 44 to close, and that's great. Will we be sitting in these same chairs in a different building next year, considering the same thing that our students are now in an overpopulated school where now we have to remove kindergarten and first grade and place them in a charter school? Are we looking at most of our students being removed from 44 and 57 or wherever other school it is, and most of those students enrolling in a charter school next year because of the inconsistency of the school district? as a parent of a kindergartner, do I need to consider putting him in a charter school where there is consistency now? Or say, okay, give the city school district a chance, go to first grade and see how that works, and again, in January of 2021, I'm in the same position.
Especially for our city of Rochester. So there's not been an attempt to cause this consistent disruption. I was thinking my first year would look a lot different than it does right now, to be honest. I thought that these decisions would maybe down the road, but due to our current crisis, we have to make a lot of tough decisions now. My hope is that we're building a much more sustainable fiscal future where we're not eliminating staff members, where we're not changing schools and repurposing them. We just can't continue that, make that happen, because you are a parent that's advocating for your child, and I know what you will do. You'll walk right over to the charter to consistency. So I want to keep you. That's my whole hope, is to increase the enrollment. With increased enrollment, I have to keep parents and families like you here, so that I'm going to do everything possible to make that happen. Yes, ma'am.
So the DOC published an article a few months ago saying they're opening 2 new charter schools next year already. And we know that if these kids are going to the charter schools, then you're just going to continue to close schools in the city of Rochester. So I noticed that you were in Albany recently asking for funding, but even if we get that funding, if kids keep leaving to the newly opened charter schools, then we're going to be in a process where every single year we're losing teachers and we're losing schools until we don't exist anymore. So wouldn't it behoove you and the district as a whole to start really rallying around the idea of putting a moratorium on charter schools in the city of Rochester? It seems like our city elected officials are really advocating for the opening of charter schools. And as somebody who went to city schools myself, my husband's school isn't open anymore. My schools are, I'm concerned that they're going to be closing. I had a friend I went out to dinner with the other day who said her elementary school is closed. These are things that we don't have connections to anymore in our community. And if we're not putting a broad-based effort into stopping the opening of more schools, those schools aren't full yet. So those are going to be filled with our kids. And for good reason, because who wants to send their kid to a school that could close midstream? So I want to know what you're doing and what the district is doing, other than hoping that this new center will retain students, because I'm not sure actually that there is evidence that the kids who go to a center-based preschool will grow up into the district, as opposed to what happens already. You're saying that if they go to a CBO, they end up leaving to a charter school. This sounds similar to me. So I'm wondering what our effort is.
So a few things. One, I'm not going to speak for our commissioners, but I can tell you that it's not up to our commissioners with regards to opening charters. That is the state level. So we are advocating, I'm advocating for a moratorium on charters. I think when we're looking at declining enrollment in school districts, the state owes it to us to think clearly about what that does to school systems. With regards to my assertion that students who start off in an RCSD Pre-K enroll in a kindergarten class is fact. We've looked at every single CBO, community-based organization, that has a pre-K, and every single classroom in the district, and every single the center that we have, and you're twice as likely to stay in RCSD if you start off in a pre-K at RCSD than you do at a CBO. It's fact. We broke it down by every...
Did you look at that data? Is it delineated by a school-based program? Because I know if I sent my child here for pre-K, I would want that child to go to kindergarten and first grade.
We did it by every single CBO, every single classroom.
You only have one pre-K center now, correct? So it's not a lot of data to look at.
But then individual classrooms, so we have the misnomer is it's not just our pre-K center. We have pre-K classrooms throughout the district. So we've looked at that data as well, which is much more robust. So all of those classrooms plus the center, all of those rates of return of staying in the RCSD is twice as likely as our community-based organization. And we can share with you the data that we pulled on.
I trust that data. I think it's because the kids are in the school, and so you want the consistency.
But our center is twice as likely to choose RCSD school as well. So we have a few data points. If we open the 2 additional centers, we would have additional data points. But right now, all I can do is look at the data of what.
That's
what it says.
experimenting on a lot of kids.
It's not. I know it's right by. I wouldn't put a proposal that's going to be an experimentation.
And the reality of it is that you cut teachers for financial reasons, and then you're cutting schools for financial reasons to keep the numbers. You say you have more pre-K students than you have kindergarten through 5th or 6th grade, but once those pre-K students go to kindergarten, where are they being placed? If my son was in pre-K last year, if I would have known this, I would have placed him in kindergarten in charter school, because the city school district is not consistent. So when you bring these pre-K students in September, and they've already gone through hoops and loops to get them into those pre-K programs, they're not going to feel secure in themselves as parents, or the consistency for the child to say, we're going to place them in a kindergarten program in the city school district, because the city school district doesn't have enough money to fund the teachers to teach these students, but the charter schools do. So again, that's the long run of it. Again, will we be sitting here in 365 days doing the exact same thing?
So something that the state is expecting of the Rochester City School District is not to be in a year-to-year conversation like this. This is our deficit. What are we going to do to close it? The expectation is that we're developing 3 to 5 year plans. So the Board of Education and myself will be putting together a financial plan to look at what is the long range for schools, enrollment, how we're spending our money, staffing, and the like. It has to likely needs to be approved by someone, an independent monitor. It's really going to look at the plan to see what we're doing. So that should result in less of this. Now it's another crisis. Now it's another crisis. What is the 3 to 5 year plan is our expectation moving forward. Yes?
I have a few questions. One, is this proposal a joint proposal of both schools that are being supported on the 27th, or is it 2 separate?
Both schools.
Is the plan considering 2 separate?
It's up to the Board of Education, but right now my proposal is for the 2 schools.
Okay, and then so the number that you said before of the number of the percentage of the students going to CBO versus preschool, can you say that again?
61% CBO, 39%
Okay,
RCSD.
and then you said the shift with your proposal.
55-45.
Okay, and the savings is going to be $9,000 that we're giving right now to CBOs.
That's not the savings. The savings is by repurposing. Right. So the savings of $4.1 million is just with the repurposing of the 2 schools, with our current students going to other existing buildings. The $9,000 per student is what we would be keeping in RCSD, but serving the same students. So it's not really a revenue. It's really only that 4.1.
So the CBOs, the salaries are usually much less from what I gather.
Certifications maybe as well.
Certifications, a lot of them aren't certified, their health benefits, all of that. So having teachers that are going to be in those sessions that are going to be certified is going to shift around a lot of people. If you close 2 schools at the same time, it's going to shift around a lot of teachers, which means potentially laying off more teachers. And so I'm curious if there's any sort of plan in place right now, or between now and the 27th, that you can show us, we're prepared for school choice and what there's going to need to do for teachers. So that's
Yeah, we can, but it's all layered within our 2021 budget. So I can't make predictions on teachers' movement and the like, because we still have to, I will be revealing what the deficit is for next year, and all of it's going to depend on the approved budget for 2021. So I don't have that in particular to be able to show.
So this is all being very rushed, the proposed plan on the 23rd, we're going to make available to the public until 2 days after that. So could it be considered to postpone this?
Just like the vote in December, that's always a consideration, but it's not my proposal. My proposal is for the 27th, because of the state needs to approve it by March 1st. So if it extends beyond March 1st, then it just doesn't happen. So my proposal is to the 27th, so we're meeting state mandated requirements.
And then you said that on the 3rd floor of this school, is there a 3rd floor here? That there's going to be staff that we're going to be here?
There could be, yes.
Okay. And is the 3rd floor really the 2nd floor? Yeah. Okay, because I just saw the third floor, but I didn't see an actual
Okay.
floor.
Yeah.
How about third floor?
So staff could be in this building, but we can fully flesh it out. The more important thing is where our students are at this time. Yes?
How does converting this school to pre-K, it's still on the rolls for the city school district, how does that cost less and count as we close the school when you're going to still be using it versus using it as it is now, adding pre-Ks where there's room, and putting pre-Ks in schools that have empty space?
Because the current students would be going to other schools that are in existence within this zone. So those are already staffs in place and the like. By repurposing for the pre-K, again, there's a return on investment for keeping our students, and the long game is to reverse the staggering decline in enrollment. If you study urban education, successful models of anywhere that has seen an uptick in enrollment in an urban environment, there's two strategies. One, you keep your pre-K as a vibrant, high-quality pre-K system within your school system. And two, you diversify your portfolio of options of schools, things like magnet programs and the like throughout the district. That's what Buffalo is doing. DC has about a 50-50 charter population, and they're one of the only urban districts in the entire nation that is seeing an increase in enrollment. So this is not about the current crisis. It's really thinking of how do we turn this challenge into an opportunity and start to reverse the trend in enrollment. Yes, ma'am.
I understand that you have a very difficult position that you are in. I don't have any children that attend this school, but I'm here because I do live in this community. I actually spoke at the school board. Yes, and my son. And so my concern is really more of an observation, and maybe you can just help me clear up just a couple of question marks that I have in my head. I'm concerned that we keep hearing the data, we keep hearing the statistics, we keep hearing reasons why. You mentioned earlier that 6,300 students we have lost in enrollment over the past 2 years. And we're hearing some on some sides say that we don't want a state takeover, but yet we keep losing these students to charter schools, which are being, to my understanding, that the state are deciding where these charter schools are being opened. Everybody understands that this is an economically disadvantaged community. So usually, poor people don't usually have a voice, they don't have a say. We have these meetings, these roundtable discussions, and we come out and we ask parents, what are your major concerns? Let us know because we want to work with you. And parents show up and they pour their hearts out to you and they give you their stories about their children and what they're having to deal with, once everybody leaves here and you're at home and you're having to help your child understand what's happening, explaining adult issues to little children. I'm concerned about that because it makes me feel, the impression is that maybe we have forces that are really actually working against us to sabotage all of the efforts that parents are putting into trying to make sure that we're saving our schools, that our kids, I'm a firm believer that you should be able to eat, play, worship, shop, send your kids to school in the community that you live in. And that's not happening. And it just makes me wonder, this epidemic that we're seeing and experiencing, this mass exodus of children leaving public schools, going to charter schools, is it really an undercurrent that we're not even aware of? That people are showing up because this is protocol and we have to make sure that we have parents and we gather them and we find out, what their issues and concerns are. But when it's all said and done, that it's really just a ploy and an illusion, because in actuality, those who say that they don't want a state takeover actually do want a state takeover. So I think just as parents, we've got to really put demands on the board and everybody else and say that We should have a right, we should have a legal right to decide what is best for our children. And just because we live in a community where maybe, income levels and, those people who really, people of affluence in other communities where money is flowing in and they can have more of a say-so, and people in this community just don't have access to that economic opportunity, we need to make sure that we're just not ignoring the voice of our parents, and that we're not ignoring that these are what people really want. If you say that you want to help and you are listening, then I think that should be demonstrated. But I'm just concerned because my children right now, they're in a good school, they're at school 12. But who is to say that school 12 is not next, that school 12 is coming up, because you're going to come back again with all of these numbers, all of these statistics, and say this is why we're having to close the school because of rapid, reduction in enrollment. But we just need to make sure that we're not having the people who are gathered here tonight with us putting on the mask, putting on faces, and making us think that you're for us when in actuality you are working against us.
So I'm going to speak for myself. I did not come to Rochester to crunch numbers. I came here because it's my calling to serve populations that look like me. Opportunities that were made available to me in education, being the son of a single parent home. My dad was an undercover police officer in DC, and education was my way out of poverty. So I can't speak for anyone else other than myself, but I won't be minimized to a number cruncher. My skill set is not finances. It's not that piece. It's the unfortunate roadmap and challenges that I've been put on my shoulders. But someone in another setting, there's things on my shoulders that I know that I can handle if I just follow my heart and soul. So I can't speak for others, but I did not come here to just present data and numbers. There's other districts that I could have chosen if that would be the primary responsibility. I'm here because I'm about the students and families in the RCSD. Unfortunately, we have to make sure that we are not overspending the money that's allocated for us to spend. Things that happen if we don't do that, or we don't have payroll for months on end. What happens to teachers and families and the like then if we aren't able to even make payroll at a certain point? So, well said. I'm going to leave your sentiments in the room because it was very well said. I'm going to pause here because I'm seeing hands that we've heard from, but I'm going to spend some time with you, ma'am. I see young kids in the room. It is that hour of ending time, but I want to make sure that you know I will be staying up here. Folks from my team will be available for any additional questions that you might have with regards to the process and the like. But I sincerely thank you for coming out and providing your feedback. Please continue to, you can send emails directly to me, Terry.Dade at rcsdk12.org. There's numbers that will be provided for placement and those opportunities, but I sincerely thank every one of you for coming out today. Okay, and back home, we already would have closed school for today and tomorrow, but just be careful when you go out. No, we're not closing. So I want the temperature dropped outside, so please be careful as you go out because it was raining when we came in, and now we're a little bit below freezing, so there's some ice out there. Thank you.